In May, I only managed to finish one book across the entire month, but I'm very glad to report that my reading for June was much more successful. Let's have a chat about all the books I finished in June. We'll set up review pages for each one in my reading journal, as well as take a look at my mid-year reading stats and set up some tracking pages so I'm ready for all my July reading too. Hi, I'm Erin, and this is a reading journal update video. We do one of these every month, so if you enjoy it, I hope you'll stick around and watch some more in the future too. Here's my lovely B5 reading journal. It's from Tiefossi, and it, along with everything else I use in this video, are linked in the description in case you also want to get your hands on any of the tools that I'm using. Let's start out with some of the year overview trackers at the beginning of my journal. In my previous reading journals, this was always just a written list of books, but I thought I'd try it with book covers this year, and it is very dynamic and I'm really enjoying that. In case you're curious about how I make my book cover stickers, I have a video about that you can find linked in the description. If you recognize any of these book covers, never fear, we're going to talk about each one individually later on, so I'll let you know if I think it's worth reading or not. Let's head over now to my June tracking pages. We'll come back to the stats later once I know all of that information, but for now, let's fill out my book tracking calendar. I'm using these Tombow dual brush pens that kind of match my theme to add a line on the calendar for each of the books that I read. This also includes books that I didn't finish, as well as books that carried over from last month or will continue into the next month. I'm not a particularly fast reader, and I'm not a particularly slow reader either. I'd say I'm a pretty average speed, but I do have my moments where I read more quickly, especially if a book really draws me in, and sometimes a book that I'm really enjoying will take me a really long time anyway, so it's a bit all over the place, but I did for the first time this year, and for the first time in a long time, have a book that I finished in a single day, which is very, very rare for me. I also, in June, had my very first DNF for the year, did not finish, in case you aren't familiar with the book talk lingo. But on the whole, it was a really good reading month for me. I had a very high overall average rating for the month of June, which made me really happy because I had a lot of trouble focusing in May, so it's good to know that I've somewhat come back from that. How about you? I'd love to know if June was a good reading month, a bad reading month, or maybe just a mediocre reading month for you. Let me know down in the comments, and as always, I'd love to hear what your favourite book was in June because I like to take your recommendations and put them on my own list of maybe next books. You might notice me using these extremely helpful functional sticker sheets throughout. I actually designed these ones to make my reading journal experience a lot more streamlined, and I made them available for you too. If you'd like, you can grab them on my website. They're linked in the description. They're digital download files that you can then print and cut yourself, especially if you have a cutting machine. They'll make your life a lot easier. And you can just buy them once and use them over and over and over again. On the left page here with all of my book covers, I have a bit of a system. So the ones with a star rating are the books I finished, and the ones without are the ones I didn't. And this was the book I didn't finish. It's Game Changer by Rachel Reed, which is the first book in the Game Changers series, which is the series that inspired the Heated Rivalry TV show. I have watched the TV show and I thought it was fun. I just didn't love the writing style of this book. I wasn't vibing it. It's very accessible. I think it's very kind of straightforward writing, so I can see how it could be something that people who haven't read for a long time or haven't read before could pick up very easily, but I felt like it was a bit blunt for me. I like a bit of nuance. Sometimes I like a bit of purple prose even, and this book just wasn't in that for me, so I decided to let it go. And there's a little gap down the bottom here that should have the book cover for The Someday Garden by Ashley Post in there, but I haven't printed one yet, so I'm just going to leave it blank for now. Also, shout out to Emily Bastong 3896 for the recommendation for Not for the Faint of Heart. I read that one in June. We'll have some more trackers to update later on, but for now, let's move into my book review pages. I'm actually going to use my minimal style 2 books to a page review setup for the first couple. Ordinarily, I reserve this for books that I don't super enjoy, but I actually loved both of these. I just didn't feel like I had the stationery to give them a decorative page and have it work, so I'm going with the minimal one instead. First of all, we have Call It What You Want by Brigid Kemmerer. I have been working my way through Brigid Kemmerer's back catalogue over the past, probably, I guess, 2 years now, and I have exhausted all of her fantasy options, so I've moved into her young adult offerings now, and she still has not disappointed me. This book is an absolute slump killer. It follows 2 high school students, both of whom have a lot going on in their lives. Megan is a star student who was caught cheating on an exam, and her sister's just come home from college pregnant, and her family doesn't know what to do. And Rob used to be one of the popular guys until his dad was caught embezzling money from the local town people, and now everyone hates Rob by extension. So what happens when these two troubled kids get thrown together on a school project? This book is how you find out. I've just realised I forgot to include my peach rating scale sticker, so I'm going to have to get a bit creative and add that as a tip in, but while we do that, don't let the YA-ness of this book fool you if you're not someone who typically likes YA. I would recommend checking the content warnings before you go in because it does have some dark content. And all of the complex interpersonal stuff that is always present in Brigid Kemmerer's books is very much present in this one too. She just does that so well. She's very skilled at making complex situations very relatable and very emotional. I got so absorbed into this one, I read it in 2 days, and this is not even the I read it in a single day book. I just really got drawn into this story and these characters. I've moved my book cover onto this separate little bit of paper from an Archer and Olive notepad, and I've taped it in so that it can flip up, and I'm going to put my peach rating sticker right underneath this so I can still have my rating somewhere because I need it. In case you haven't come across my peach rating system before, it's one that I came up with. It's loosely based on the Corpile system, and it involves giving the book a rating across 5 different categories: plot, enjoyment, artistry, characters, and heart, and then getting a total out of 25, dividing that by 5 to get your rating. And for this one, I gave it 4.5. I almost never give out 5-star ratings, so that's a very high rating. And I always like to have that rating information over here on this dashboard spread as well, so I'm just transferring that back before we move on to the next book. We're actually going to skip that lower one on the left page and move on to Meet Me in the Margins, because technically I finished that one before the book that will go in that other space. This one's by Melissa Ferguson, and it had been on my to-read list for a really long time. Like probably since it came out in 2022. This is a contemporary romance with a really fun premise. Our protagonist Savannah works as an editor in a publishing house, mostly for non-fiction, but she dreams of being a romance writer. She's just finished her first manuscript, and because of a little altercation at work, someone has found it and is leaving her notes in the margins, editing her work. And their feedback is really good. So it has a little bit of a you've got mail plot device going on, which is one of my absolute favourite tropes. I love it so much. And through their correspondence on Savannah's novel, she kind of starts to get to know the person who is her mystery editor, but at the same time she's kind of developing a little crush on her new boss. So how's that gonna go? You'll have to read it to find out. I will never give you spoilers, by the way, in the voiceover, but there will be spoilers in my written reviews on the pages, so just don't read those if you'd like to avoid that. Since this story involves quite a bit of sticky note writing, I thought it would be fun to include some sticky notes at the bottom of the page. These ones are actually from Muji on a roll, which is very cool. They're a touch smaller than your typical sticky note, and I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of the actual feedback that Savannah gets in the book onto these. So just a little tidbit for you. Drop this character. Boring Hallmark meet cute, which is particularly painful to Savannah because she thinks her meet cute is the best. And this kiss scene is awful. I'm paraphrasing a bit here because I listened to this one on audiobook, so I can't kind of just flip back to the page to see what the actual statements were, but that's kind of along the lines of what you can expect. This is just such a cute, cozy, kind of short, easy to knock out little rom-com moment, and I really enjoyed it. I think while I've been having some attention issues, I've been reaching more for contemporary romance rather than the high-stakes kind of fantasy that involves a lot more retention of names and plot points and stress, and just gravitating more towards this kind of thing where it's cute and cozy. This one's also spice-free, so if you're someone who doesn't enjoy spice in your books, this would be a good one for you. I quite like a spicy book, but I think it's worth mentioning. It's also a book that I finished fairly early on in June, but I wouldn't say that I thought about it a lot since then, so not a super high rating, but nothing too low either. This one worked out to 3.9, so I'm rounding it up to 4 stars, which is very respectable. Now let's fill in that gap on the previous page with my very first non-fiction read of the year. This one is Average at Best by Astrid Jorgensen. Astrid is actually a Brisbane local and the creator of Pub Choir, which is a phenomenal event where people come together in a pub or hotel and learn the different harmony parts of a song and sing it all together. If that sounds familiar, it could be because she went viral on America's Got Talent last year. She got the audience to sing Africa by Toto, and it was wonderful. I have been to pub choir once in Brisbane, and we sang Blow Up the Pokies by the Whitlams, and that was also wonderful. And this book is also so wonderful. So it's a memoir, and Astrid narrates the audiobook herself, which is just a joy. I feel so nostalgic about it. It very much encapsulates the Australian millennial experience growing up where I did. I have put the wrong sticker down here because this is non-fiction. I actually want my Mitsu rating system named after my other cat. Peaches named after my cat Peaches. The Mitsu system's named after Mitsu. And the categories for this one are message, insight, tone, style, and utility. My maths for this one comes out at a whopping 4.6 stars for average at best, so it's just beat out Call It What You Want for first place so far for June. If you want to laugh out loud, if you'd like a bit of the Australian humour injected into your life if you're not already an Aussie, I highly recommend this read. It is so much fun, and the audiobook cannot be beat. This is actually unrelated to average at best, but the bottom of my Meet Me in the Margins page is kind of annoying me. These post-it notes are just floating in space, so I'm going to add this script washi tape behind them to give them something to anchor to, something to hold on to, and something that's still a little bit on theme with writing. Much better. Let's move on to our Page Majors read for the month of June. This one is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. And I want to give a big shout out to Sandra and Jessica, who both suggested this one for our Page Majors read. But Erin, what does Page Majors mean? Well, that's my book club. Every month we choose a different book that is suggested by the members of the Page Majors. We chat about it over the course of the month over in my private Discord server as we're reading. And at the end of the month, we have a little call on Discord where we discuss the book in real time. It is so much fun, but it's only available to my Page Mage level channel members. So if you're not already a channel member, hit the join link down below, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen at the moment and find out more about the prices for the different tiers and what's involved. If you're interested to know what our July book is, stay tuned because I have a Page Majors page in my journal that will update together a little bit later on, and you'll find out then. I've made a frame for this spread with a washi tape from the Quirky Cup Collective and just cut it on an angle in the corners so it really looks like a frame that's supposed to piece together. And I'm using my Pilot parallel pen for the very first time here with some red ink to letter the title of the book. I printed out the book cover for this one before realizing there was a very pretty alternate version that seems to be a paperback or something, so I've actually taken the inspiration for my lettering from that other version, not from the one that's on my page. I really like to give myself a full spread, 2 pages, for my book club reads because we have discussion questions that we use to guide our discussion over on Discord when we talk about the book in our call. So I like to write my answers to those questions here, partly so I have a record of them and also partly so I can help steer the discussion from my own journal if I have the spread done in time, although I didn't for this one. So 2 pages gives me lots of room to write those questions and answers down for myself, as well as some extra thoughts on the book if I have any that I want to include that aren't covered in those questions. Of course, there is no obligation to enjoy every book club book. In fact, I think the most interesting discussions come from when people have very different experiences of the book, and this was kind of one of those cases. I think for the most part, it was quite well beloved by everybody, but there were a few people who didn't have a great time with it. It's interesting, I've been finding it a little bit more difficult to focus on audiobooks lately than on ebooks, and I guess that affected my experience with this book somewhat, but it was so much fun. I had a really good time. I kind of wish I'd read it at a different time when I could have given it my full attention. I was actually planning to do this one on ebook and I had the library hold and everything, but it was a little bit on the longer side, and so to make sure I could get through it in a timely manner rather than my experience of last month's book, I thought I would switch to audiobook to make sure that I was a little bit more speedy. And I don't think that was a bad choice because the audiobook for this one is awesome. I didn't really feel like I had the perfect stickers for this, so I'm using a few different sticker sheets to add some little embellishments. This one's from Hope Christopherson, and the one with the ship was by R.A Marsh, but both via sticky. So this audiobook is delivered in a really fascinating way that I hadn't really come across before, where our main character, the titular Amina al-Sirafi, is dictating her story to a scribe. And every now and then she has a little aside to this scribe that is commentary on their reaction or on something that they've written down. And it kind of comes across in the audiobook like if you're on the phone and you don't want the person on the phone to hear what you're saying to someone else and you kind of cover the receiver with your hand and it's muffled, that kind of a vibe. It's really cool and really fascinating. I've never heard an audiobook that did this. This one is essentially historical fantasy set in the 12th century Indian Ocean trade network, and it draws from Arabic and Islamic folktales, which I'm not at all familiar with, so this was a very new story for me. But it was also really refreshing to read because our protagonist here, Amina al-Sirafi, she's a pirate and she's badass and she's also in her 40s and she's a mother and she has bad knees. Literally every time I've seen somebody online complaining about the fantasy novel protagonist heroine being a teenager or in her early 20s, people respond by recommending this book. So I'm really glad I finally got to it because I've been meaning to read it for ages. Technically, Amina is a retired pirate, but she is sought out by a noblewoman to rescue her kidnapped granddaughter. And when Amina refuses, this noblewoman threatens Amina's own daughter. So she gets her band, her crew back together, and gets to go on one last adventure. I have to give a shout out to a character in this story called Raksh because I love him so much. If you liked Spike from Buffy, I think you'll really enjoy his character because I do. This is ultimately going to be a trilogy, so this is the first book. The second one just came out, but the third one won't be out for some time. And I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really funny, so I do think I'll be continuing the series, but probably not immediately. I always like to space out my reads from the same series so there's a little bit of time between them, or I start to get confused about what happened in which book. But there's definitely a sweet spot where you don't want to leave it too long or you'll forget what happened in the first book, so I'm still trying to work out what that sweet spot is for me. It seems fitting that Mitsu's joined us for part of the process of this one because there is a cat on the ship in this story, and I love a story with a cat. I'm not too sure why I did this one so out of order, but I put the book rating down first before I started all the rest of the stuff here, so you can probably already see that I rated it 4.3, so approximately 4.25 stars when you colour in the stars themselves. Let's take that rating back over to the dashboard spread as well. Onward to another really fun book. As I mentioned earlier, Emily, one of my lovely viewers, left a recommendation for this one for me a little while ago. And Lex Croucher was on my radar, but I didn't know about this book. So thank you, Emily, because this one was so much fun. This is Not for the Faint of Heart by Lex Croucher. And I've mostly taken inspiration from the book cover for my decoration here, this lovely stained glass kind of a vibe. Washi tape is from the Quirky Cup Collective, and the green script tape down the bottom is from Paper Monogatari, so you can't get that one, so sorry, but you can get the quirky one. And I'm using these Languo brush markers to make my heading for this one. I wanted bright pink, just like on the book cover, but I'm going to jump in with the green marker and add some little leaves on it, because this story takes place in Sherwood Forest. Lex Croucher has created this incredible through line in their work where things are based on folktales and mythology, but it's always a couple of generations down the line and it always has a queer twist. We spend quite a bit of the book with a character named Clem. She is a budding healer, and very early on in the book she is kidnapped by the Merry Men, yes, Robin Hood's Merry Men, because her mentor is under suspicion of having healed people from the other side of the fight, the sheriff's people. But Clem has this innate joy and sense of adventure, so Clem is like, this is so cool, I've just been kidnapped by the Merry Men. What an incredible day for me. The leader of this subsect of the Merry Men, Mariel, is actually the granddaughter of Robin Hood himself, and the daughter of the guy who's in charge now, so she's got a lot of pressure put on her. But the Merry Men aren't operating the way they used to. They aren't all about robbing from the rich and giving to the poor anymore. They've got processes and systems and their own kind of governing bodies. So the people of Sherwood are like, are you even still on our side, really? And Mariel's not really sure whose side is the right one anymore. I laughed out loud so many times reading this. Lex Croucher has such an excellent turn of phrase. Don't go into this one expecting it to read historical, because it definitely is written in a modern way. People speak to each other like they would now. There's a bit of a ragtag found family cast of characters that are all just so lovable. And it has a cute little sapphic love story woven throughout as well, which is just so sweet. At this point, Lex Croucher is just an automatic must-read author for me, and they have a few other books in their catalogue that I haven't got to yet, so that's always a joy. I should really add them to some kind of an author tracker page at the beginning of my journal, maybe. But it's not all fun and games. I will warn you, this book did make me cry also. So there is that, just be warned. I read this one on ebook and I highlighted so many phrases that made me giggle or chuckle or made me go, huh, but I almost didn't remember to leave any room for them on my review page, so I'm just going to tuck in 2 little quotes down the bottom here, using a Pentel brush sign pen that doesn't match any of the other greens on the page. The first quote is, "Slow and steady keeps your limbs on," and the second one is, "You don't seem very kidnapped." I feel like just from those 2 quotes you can get a really good idea of the writing style of this book. I love them both so much. This is an example of a book that I absolutely adored, but it took me a long time to read. So I started this one on the 9th of June and I finished it on the 23rd, but that did not mean that I didn't have a great time with it. Not for the Faint of Heart is scoring 4s and 5s across the board on my peach rating scale, coming out to 22 out of 25, which is 4.4 stars. And for our last book review for this video, this one is another one from my long-term TBR, if that is a term that you use. I've been meaning to read this one for some time. If you're also a Storygraph user, you'll know that when you open up the app, it shows you books from your want to read list. And this one just kept popping up at the top. And I was like, do you know what? You're right, it's time. And my library hold had come through, but it was suspended. So I was able to just take it off suspended and get to this one soon after deciding that, which is great. This one is Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks, and something you should know about me is that I really enjoy a story where one of the characters is a death care worker. I don't know if that counts as a trope, but a lot of my absolute favourite romance stories seem to have that in common. The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston and The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. It's just a thing that I love. I don't know. And I have been a big fan of Caitlin Doty or Ask a Mortician for a long time, so maybe that plays in. Actually, one of Caitlin's books is mentioned by name in this book, which is a nice little Easter egg. Anyway, this one is a contemporary romance. It's set in Galway in Ireland. Our female main character's name is Lark, and she has just moved to Galway to take on a job to escape her life back in the States where she lost her husband in a horrible accident. And she thought she was moving in next door to a charming bed and breakfast, but it's actually the local funeral home. And she works that out the hard way when she receives a delivery of body bags by accident that was supposed to go next door. Callum is the undertaker and he's holding up the family business, but in his grandfather's will he stated that Callum only gets to keep the place if he's married by his 35th birthday, and he is 34 and out of prospects, and demisexual, which makes the whole dating thing a little bit rough. So when Lark gets to know his situation, she decides to help him find the one so that he can keep his family business alive and keep serving the community that he loves. If I'm being super honest with you, I almost DNF'd this book. I nearly didn't finish it. The beginning wasn't hooking me and I felt like things were feeling kind of rushed, but there's a recommendation, a blurb on the front from Abby Jimenez, and I was like, we trust in Abby, I will continue reading. And she was right, it actually got a lot better, and by the end I was pretty hooked. Probably not one to go into if you're trying to avoid grief in stories, because there's definitely a lot of it. I guess that's kind of obvious. And the characters can be kind of frustrating at times, but I guess that's normal for a romance story. I found it pretty easy to read after I got through that first sort of 10-15%. Nothing super groundbreaking for me, but definitely not a bad time either. I've kind of given it 3.5 for most of my peach rating categories, for a total score of 18 out of 25, which works out to 3.6 stars, although I wrote them in the wrong places, so I'm just doing a little arrow to indicate that they should be swapped. So essentially 3.5 stars. And if 3.6 is my lowest rating for the month, then it's been a pretty good month. Now that all my ratings and reviews are squared away for June, I can flip back to my initial page here with all of the book covers for everything I read across the year and fill in all of the ratings here too. Now let's talk Page Majors Book Club things, because I need to put the book cover down for our July book. Right now we're reading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Shout out to Becca for the suggestion for this one, I just need to tuck it under this sticker. If you'd like to join us to read Rebecca and discuss it at the end of the month, definitely check out the join link down below if you're not already a Page Majors channel member. While we're back here, I'm going to update my book bingo a little bit. Shout out to Virginia, who suggested I put Under Milkwood as my literary fiction entry when I messed up and accidentally did 2 with The Midnight Library last month. I'm assigning average at best to my non-fiction, although I forgot there was a memoir/biography square. It probably should have gone to that. Maybe I'll read another memoir. And I'm popping down Call It What You Want as my young adult square. Now, I thought I'd ask for your help for one of them. On the second row on the right side, number 10, I have graphic novel. I have no idea where to start finding a graphic novel to read, so if you have any suggestions for me, I would so appreciate that. My highest rated book of the month was Average at Best by Astrid Jorgensen, but I don't have a book cover printed for it, so I'm just writing it for now, and I'm colouring in Call It What You Want on my Brigid Kemmerer author tracker as well. And one more yearly tracker update to make for A Year of Goober. I forgot to colour in whichever one I thought the prompt fit for A Forgery of Fate, but it could really fit either, so I'm just going to go with a genre blend. And I'm going with the less than 300 pages brownie prompt for Average at Best because it has 256 pages. Let's update my June reading stats now that that's all sorted. As always, I take my reading stats from Storygraph and I just log my reading throughout the month, so it's really easy to get these. And it's free, which is a bonus. I finished a total of 6 books in June for a grand total of 1,258 pages and 36.23 hours. On average, it took me 6 days to finish a book, and naturally, I don't have a pie chart for fiction versus non-fiction in the 1 month when I actually read a non-fiction book, so it was 83% fiction, 17% non-fiction for me this time. The genres I covered this month were romance, contemporary, LGBTQIA+, young adult, historical, memoir, and fantasy, so nothing too out of the ordinary for me there except for the memoir. I've created some custom tags so I can track the source of my books, and I ended up with 33% books that I paid for in some way for this month, and 67% of them I sourced through a library. Ordinarily, I colour in the segments of my pie charts, but because they're different materials, one is a circle that I just drew on the page, and one is a sticker, they'll look really different anyway, so I'm just going to leave them as the pen this time. And it was a 50-50 split between audio and digital for format for me this month. My average rating was 4.25 stars, which is so good. And eventually I'll add a big book cover for Average at Best here because it was my standout for the month, but for now I don't have one, so we'll leave it blank. I actually think I'm past halfway in this book, so I might need a second reading journal this year, which would be wild. But since we're at the halfway point of the year, let's do some mid-year reading stats. I'm pretty chill about how I decorate this kind of page because it's going to have a lot going on, so I'm just using things that are already on my desk to put something on the page, and we'll just kind of stick stuff over the top. I enjoyed using my parallel pen to make the heading for my Amina al-Sirafi page so much that I'm just going to try and do the exact same lettering style again over here for my stats. Speaking of the stats, these are also taken from Storygraph. I just pulled them up in browser on the web version and screenshotted everything. I moved a couple of the text pieces on the pie charts to make them take up less space, but I didn't have to calculate any of this stuff myself. And then I just uploaded them into Cricut Design Space and printed and cut them like Kiss Cut stickers like I do with everything. So thus far for 2026, I have read 28 books, a total of 6,047 pages, and 169.32 hours of audio. My top genres are romance and fantasy, equal tied at 14 books each. Is anyone surprised? Absolutely not. 4% non-fiction and 96% fiction. I honestly don't pay much attention to the moods part of Storygraph, but it tells me my highest rated mood category is emotional, followed by adventurous, and then funny and lighthearted. My average rating for the year is 4.02. And 21 of those 28 books I sourced through the library, which I love that saving. 7% of the books I've read had over 500 pages. The other 93% had between 300 and 499 pages. I'm at a 50-50 split for the year between audiobook and ebook. 89% of the books I've read are apparently medium-paced, with 7% fast and 4% slow. I really don't pay any attention to that though. And of the audiobooks I've read, 57% of them were between 8 and 16 hours long, 14% were over 16 hours, and 29% were less than 8. And I've ended up with more page space than I expected, so I'm just going to fill in a few gaps with this tape and then we can move along. I mentioned my private Discord server earlier, which is only available to my Page Mages and my Jubilant Journals level channel members, and we're having a little Shop Your Stash challenge over there at the moment where there are a couple of different prompts for each week. I thought I'd use those to inspire the setup for my July pages in my reading journal. So the prompts for the first week are something you've been saving for the perfect page or something you forgot you had. And this transfer sticker sheet from Cora Career Crafts is definitely one I've been saving for the perfect page, and I don't think the perfect page exists, so this is a wonderful opportunity to use it. I don't know if transfer stickers kind of go bad after a while, but I had a lot of trouble getting this one to peel up nicely. I have had it in my stash for like at least 2 years, so maybe that has something to do with it, but it came out mostly okay. And for the something I forgot I had, I'm using this amazing Birth of Venus sticker from Lace & Whimsy Studio. And I've kind of just built the theme around those things. I was setting this up kind of on the cusp of week 1 and week 2, so I'm also including some of the week 2 promptage here too. Those are a sticker or a paper piece you've only got one of, or something you haven't used yet this year, which for me is the washi tape from Archer and Olive, which came with their subscription box that they sent me a couple of months ago. Beautiful, hadn't used it. The point of this challenge is to prevent you from buying more stationery by turning your attention back to the stationery you've already got and the stuff that you've already spent money on, and getting you to fall back in love with your existing collection. I've really been gravitating towards stickers and washi tape a lot more lately rather than paper. I used to use a lot of pieces of paper in my journal and I just haven't reached for them, so it was pretty fun to pull out my paper collection and rifle through it and find things that would work with this colour scheme and be like, oh, actually I've got so much beautiful paper. If you are one of my channel members on the Jubilant Journals or Page Mages levels, or if you plan to become one, you can find this challenge pinned in the Low Buy No Buy support channel. And it's been so much fun seeing people show us the item and then the way that they've used it. It's really satisfying to see, so hopefully it helps you fall back in love with the things you've already got. Because I bet you past you had excellent taste, so let's have a moment to celebrate past you's choices. I pretty much have a system in a B5 journal where the first page in a new setup like this is the cover page for the month, the right side will be my reading stats that wrap up at the end of the month, and then over the page will be the dashboard that has the book covers and the ratings, and then the calendar on the facing page. Fair warning, when I'm working with stuff that's been in my collection for a long time, it can sometimes be difficult to find links to it because a lot of it has gone out of stock or vanished from the place where I got it, and so I'll do my best to link you to everything, but some things might be unlinkable, and in those events I'll try to find you something similar where I can, but maybe not always the exact same item, unfortunately. Also, something I noticed when I was setting up my mid-year stats page is that I've got a lot of bulk in this journal at the top and bottom and the left and right sides of pages, but kind of a bit of a divot forming in the middle of the book. It's like it's almost concave because I've stuck so many things in around the edges. So I'm trying, particularly on the left page and on the following page as well, to make sure that some of my decoration ends up in the middle to try and balance that out, because it gets a bit uncomfortable to use the book, particularly writing on the pages, when you start to get those discrepancies. Ordinarily, I would give this page some kind of a heading that says stats or something like that, but I didn't have enough letters left in my sticker pack, and I have a second one of it actually, but I didn't want to open it just for this, so I know this is a stats page, you know this is a stats page, it doesn't need a heading this month, does it? We're just going to leave it like this. Onward to this July dashboard spread. This is an item I only have one of that's made of paper, so this is definitely fulfilling that criteria. You don't have to do all of them, but I figured why not? I have a lot of stuff. I'm fairly certain this piece of paper was from Paper Monogatari, so you can't get this one anymore. I'm so sorry, but it is very pretty. And I'm placing it right in the center of the page, so it's really going to do a lot of that rebalancing for me. I'm going to layer this kind of thick frame over the top of it too, and some PET stickers all around it, so that's really going to add a lot of bulk to the center of this page very quickly. I find in a 160 GSM page journal like this one, it doesn't interfere too much with like the backside of the calendar page. I don't think it will cause me too many problems there by being bumpy or anything. The paper's thick enough that it kind of smooths it all out, but I guess it's the build-up over time that starts to cause problems, so hopefully this goes a long way towards correcting that for my use of the rest of the book. Something else I always forget to do when I'm shopping my stash is to go back through my reusable sticker books. I always put offcuts from sticker sheets and PET tapes and things in here, so these little kingfisher birds were from a Washi tape shop tape a while ago, and they're the perfect colour scheme for this page, so they're going to fill in these spaces for me. I don't anticipate I'll be reading a great deal more than I did in June over July, so I'll probably only need space for 8 book covers or so. So I still have plenty of room to add those above and below this central decoration and have this page still work very well. Did this page really need a header? Probably not, but I had the right stickers left over on this sheet to spell the word reads, so I figured I'll just roll with it. Going to attempt something a bit daring and maybe a little silly with my calendar here. I've sketched it out ahead of time, but with the placement of my paper now, I think it's 1 dot grid space too high on the page. Mitsu agrees, so after a quick pat for my lovely kitty cat, I'm going to try to draw out this calendar 1 box lower than where I have penciled all the lines, which is not a task you can zone out through because you will forget and just draw over the existing lines and everything will be ruined. Also, I almost made the exact same mistake I made in my setup for my July theme in my bullet journal. Thank you to Jackie, who pointed out that my calendar was starting on a Thursday instead of on a Wednesday. I quite often refer to Google Calendar when I'm setting these up, and I realized that I have 2 Google Calendars attached to 2 different email addresses, and I'd been referring to the one that was a Sunday start, and that's why I was getting so confused. So I fixed that now, thankfully. Gosh, you'd think after 8 years or so of setting up DIY planners that I could draw a calendar, but apparently I still struggle. And something I forgot right back at the beginning, now that we're all set up for the July tracking, is to add my little format stickers to the corners of my book covers here. And then we'll be finished all of the updates for my reading journal for June, setting up for July tracking as well, and recapping all of my reading for the first half of the year. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Let's flip through those June and July pages as they stand now. Please don't forget to let me know if you had a good or a bad or a moderate reading month for June. I always want to hear what your favourite read was from the previous month, and also I really would love your recommendations for graphic novels too. I hope your July reading is already off to a flying start, and if you have read any of the books that I've shared in this video, or if you add them to your own list after watching this, I want to hear about that too, so let's have a chat down in the comments. I update my reading journal here on the channel every month, so if you enjoyed this video and you haven't seen the rest of them, there is a whole playlist waiting for you. We can keep talking books, and there are playlists for previous years too, so we can talk books for a while if you want. And I almost never ask people to like and subscribe, but it does really help the channel if you do those things. So if you aren't subscribed, I'd love to have you here. And if you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like so that YouTube shows it to some more people. Here's that reading journal playlist in case you want to keep hanging out, as well as another video YouTube thinks you might enjoy.